Hi, this is Jay Hooks with the Jesuit Post, and this is the third and final part of my interview with David Kinnaman, president of the Barna Group and author of You Lost Me: Why Young Christians Are Leaving Church and Rethinking Faith.
Well, one of the things that has struck me recently is that the printing press changed the way people thought about information and its access to information, and certainly changed people's views towards the scriptures and towards the accessibility of insight about life. And I'm noticing that in looking at the social impact of today's technology and the internet, that what's happening is that local churches and religious traditions are no longer sufficient for answering questions of meaning. And so whether we're in a Catholic or Protestant tradition, what is happening is that we're in a fist fight, really, to say, what does it mean to live a normal human life, a life of meaning and significance. You can Google just about anything. I don't know if you've noticed, maybe some of your readers and viewers have seen a Google commercial that shows a young boy who's trying to learn how to do a speech. And so he Googles how to give a speech, and then he gives a great speech and he gets a standing ovation, or he gets applauded at the end, and then it shows him how to ask a girl out on a date. Well, I think this is a metaphor for our times, that doubt. So, if you have a doubt, like if you could Google anything, like what are the problems in Scripture, or, if you type in Christians are, you're going to find Christians are hypocrites and, judgmental. Those are the most common ways that people Google around the phrase Christians. There are a lot of negative stereotypes. Well, in a culture of doubt, we're tempted to believe. We see all of these places in which, it's just very easy to sort of like be honest, or to find these critical aspects of people saying, believing in God was just a delusion. It was invented by, people who were trying to explain thunderstorms and, floods and all sorts of acts of God. And so, we have to acknowledge that the technologies around us are changing our very experience of how we would think about many of these questions. In an individualist age, you're sort of like not human if you don't have your own points of view on everything. And in other cultures, we have a young woman who's living with us now. She's a foreign exchange student from Thailand, and I asked her if many young Thai boys and girls, men and women, doubt their faith, doubt the Buddhist faith, and she couldn't think of any of her friends who went through this process of like dissociating with the faith. And I think it's interesting that in a culture of individualism and consumerism and hyper technological, we have found these little we found it important for us to sort of express how we're different. And I think that's creating this culture in which the church has to answer those things in a relational way, in an authentic and truthful way. And this is a deep and abiding way for us to answer these questions about human flourishing that we have to help young people begin to answer. So doubt, we live in a culture of doubt now, and we're tempted to believe. And I think our work as Christians is to help people be tempted all the more to believe and to believe fully in this revelation of Jesus. Yeah, we had this young guy we interviewed, Kevin, and his story's in the book You Lost Me, that he grew up in a Catholic home, and he wondered whether his doubts would be really accepted in the parish. And he finally said, I can't hang with it anymore, and left. And then he told us in the interview through tears that he realized after many mistakes and many sort of like literally wanderings, and he's now a very active churchgoer. But he said, I realized that it might have been even my own delusion to imagine that the church couldn't handle those things, and I wish I would have expressed my doubts. And I think you're right. I mean, I think there's sort of a both and here, where in many ways we have to say it is the responsibility of individuals for their own spiritual journey, and we as institutional leaders and churches, when they don't talk about their doubts and they're not willing to be open and honest about them, there is their own self-absorption, their own willingness to be, led astray through really the narcissism that their doubts are too big for us to handle. And then on the other side, we have an institutional responsibility as faith leaders, I think, to say, just as you pointed out, what could be a forum where we begin to admit that we don't have a lot of this worked out, and we're pretty convicted of some things and convinced of some things, but we're just working on this. And when you start to realize, or when you confess your doubts, or when you talk about your doubts, they lose their secretiveness and their potency. And I think you're right. We need to find the venues to healthfully talk about the things that really trip us up.